Welcome to the first episode ever of Talking Smack. We're talking superheroes, movies, animation, comics. I am your host, Joshua Scar, and with me this week is Alex Lasden. Alex, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Very excited to be on a podcast that will be heard by more than myself.
Hopefully. We're hopeful. Our theme this week is going to be talking Game of Thrones. We've been a week without it. We've had time to digest. We've had time to consider. We've had time to look into theories that we like and we don't like and formulate our own. We're also going to talk some news, which we're going to dive right into right now. The very first thing that we had was the Star Wars Rebels Season 4 trailer, which is what I'm most excited about. And I can't wait to see how this show ends. This is the finale of the show. It's been a great ride. Season 3 was a little bit of a letdown as far as the finale goes for me. The season 2 finale, even if you don't watch the show, I recommend that if you watch the 2-part finale of that season, it plays as like a great Star Wars movie. I would pay money to see that in a theater. I know you haven't been a big fan of the show, but you do have some opinions.
Yeah, no, I haven't really watched the show very much. I've kind of peripherally been paying attention because I do like Star Wars. And I was a Clone Wars fan, well, other than that movie that they released. But I'm kind of curious about the strategy of how Disney is rebuilding the universe. So I don't think I gave Rebels really a solid shot since they kind of dumped the extended universe, which, yes, they should have dumped that. The animation style threw me off, but I've heard a lot of friends talk about how excited they are that even the inclusion of characters like Yoda and some touches on Obi-Wan, and then of course there's Ahsoka. Her return was supposed to be pretty good. So I watched the trailer today just because I saw it there, and I wanted to see, and I was curious that they actually said finale. I'm like, that can't be right. But then 4 seasons. It sounds like about what Disney does with their animation, and it does look impressive. It actually draws me in a little bit, and maybe I should actually give it a second go.
Yeah, the showrunner Dave Filoni is the guy who also was behind Clone Wars, which is why Clone Wars is actually still canon, is he was able to interweave a lot of that. So Clone Wars technically is still canon, and you get a bunch of callbacks to that, and it's really fun, especially if you've seen and enjoyed Clone Wars. It grew on me. Mm-hmm. It wasn't necessarily my favorite Star Wars thing ever, but it definitely grew on me as it became more focused. I know the original plan for Clone Wars was not to be involved with Obi-Wan and Anakin, but then the audience reaction to Ahsoka, and because she was Anakin's Padawan, it led to a big outcry and an obvious storyline development to just focus on them more and more. There are some bad episodes, there are some good episodes, just like any TV show, but Star Wars Rebels is a high recommendation for me. If you have the time to see it, definitely take the time to watch it. If you have a friend that has the Blu-rays, me, definitely borrow it because it's fun. And the show was kicked off by Greg Weisman, the guy who was behind Gargoyles. He also did Spectacular Spider-Man and Young Justice, and then he carried over to this. And he only stuck around for 1 year. He has a really weird thing where he can only do one thing for like 2 years. I don't know what it is, but I love the guy, but I don't know why his stuff doesn't stick. Rebels kicks off on season 4. The final season kicks off on October 16th. Set your DVRs. It's going to be a crazy ride. I don't know what to expect. And that's one of the better things you can hope for from a show is not knowing what to expect, especially going into a final season.
Oh, I do have a question since I probably will start watching it now. I did notice, well, some of my friends pointed out that Rebels was hinted at in Rogue One, that there were some inclusions. Is it before or after?
It takes place before Rogue One. There is a call out to Hera Syndulla over a microphone or a PA. Hera is the pilot of the Ghost. Mm-hmm. Rebels has a family dynamic. You have Kanan, who is a fallen Jedi, a Padawan who never really became a Jedi. He's kind of the dad of the group. Hera is the pilot of the Ghost, which is a very unique ship, which you also see in Rogue One. She's the space mom of the group.
Cool.
And then you have Ezra, who is the adopted son, I guess, essentially. He's your breaking in point with the show. Mm-hmm. And then you have Zeb, who's kind of the uncle, and Sabine, who is the sister. And then you have Chopper, who is the cat.
The little droid guy, right?
Yeah, those are Dave Filoni, and Chopper's the other part that you see. He like slowly rolls off camera in one shot, like it's a blink and you miss it kind of moment. But yeah, there are some call outs to it, and it's nice to see that they're actually including certain things from their new expanded universe into the movies.
That's good.
So yeah, that's it for Rebels. Moving on, minor news, because I mean honestly, who really cares at this point? The Simpsons fired their composer Alf Clausen. The producers of the show said they're going in a new direction. They want something in a newer age and a newer audience, I guess. I mean, it's The Simpsons. What are you really expecting? What can you do that's new?
Yeah, the thing I read about that is that Matt Groening, or Groening, however you pronounce it.
I've heard it's Groening.
Okay, Matt Groening, is that he had said, or in the contract somewhere, is that they must record all the music with a full 35-piece orchestra. And so he has been the orchestra director this entire time. He's been, from episode 1 onward, he is the guy who remixed the Simpsons theme in season 3 or 4 when they changed up a little bit. Of course, that's Danny Elfman who wrote it originally, but it has been remixed, changed, however you want to say it. It's just kind of weird that it's a bizarre cost-cutting measure. They're firing this longtime composer just so they can get someone slightly cheaper who will then direct a 35-piece orchestra. It's a weird move.
It is, and we had discussed it earlier. To me, it's going for a new sound and all that after being established for nearly 30 years. It would be like South Park getting rid of that little country twang that they have in between scenes. I know they go away from it when they have their themed episodes, but when they're in their South Park prime, like you can't hear anything but that. I know that's not how it actually is, but you know what I'm trying to say. So yeah, it's just a really weird thing. It's a show that's gone on for so long, and Fox is just trying to, run this dry as a bone, and it just
whatever milks a few more episodes, I guess.
Exactly, whatever makes them a little more happy. In other news, we have more Titans casting. They had originally announced that Tegan Croft was Raven. They announced this a few weeks ago, but that was kind of it, which the Titans show is a live-action Teen Titans show that will be debuting with DC's streaming service that they'll also be launching with the debut of Young Justice Season 3. The live-action show was actually offered out to like TNT and TBS. I think the CW was kind of interested in it, but because their Arrowverse doesn't have a Batman that they've at least shown, I think Supergirl has alluded to Batman a couple of times. Other than that, they really haven't done much with Batman in the Arrowverse. So they announced that Tegan Croft is Raven, which she's a short blonde girl, hooray.
There you go.
And then they also announced that Brenton Thwaites will play Dick Grayson. Brenton Thwaites can be most recently and most obviously seen in the newest Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Yeah, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Dead Man's Chest was the second one. They've made too many of these already, and 2 of them have Dead Men in the title. I think he's a decent choice. He's a good-looking kid. Dick Grayson is supposed to be like this almost godly-looking Adonis of a man. So he's a good-looking kid. He can pull off Dick Grayson, I think. I don't know how good of an actor he is, but it's a streaming TV show. So, I mean, how good can the acting truly necessarily have to be?
I don't really have an opinion on the casting of it, just because I saw him and I went, oh yeah, he looks vaguely familiar, and then it's like, oh yeah, he's from that. Okay, yeah. And then I had to remind myself that he's not the same kid as the love interest that was from the 4th one, whichever that one is, Pirates Revenge or whatever.
On Stranger Tides.
There you go, on Stranger Tides. And so it was like trying to just correlate in my mind, is he the same guy? No, he's not the same guy, but everybody looks the same in that universe when they just rub mud on you and be like, you're the lead, please seduce this lady.
You're the new Orlando Bloom.
Basically.
And then they also announced that Anna Diop, I'm assuming her name is pronounced Diop, it could be Jop, D-I-O-P, but I'm going to go with Diop because I'm American and I pronounce things as I see them. She's going to be Starfire. The casting is interesting because she is an African-American actress, and she's going to be dressed up in orange skin, or they're maybe going to do kind of like a John Jones sort of thing that they do with Supergirl, where she can transform it when she's using her powers. she's a very pretty girl. Starfire's supposed to be pretty. I don't know much about her acting chops, so it's fun that we're getting a live action Titan show, so I can't complain too much.
No, thus far I've been just paying attention because I'm one of those sinners who actually likes Teen Titans Go a lot, and we'll just put it on because it just makes me giggle. I am aware that there was the Young Titans and other stuff, and I've seen some of their episodes, but this far I'm just impressed that they're casting people who look like they would be Young Titans versus obvious 30-somethings who will pretend to be Young Titans.
Yeah, and it seems like the show is actually supposed to be after they've been established. It's not really supposed to be an origin of the Titans. Okay. It's from the original synopsis that was released when it was being worked on at TBS. Dick Grayson will start off the first episode as Robin, and then he'll move on to become Nightwing by the end of like the first or second episode.
Okay, that's interesting.
So it's obviously about them growing and moving on as a team and as individuals. So I'm excited for it. And as immature as it sounds, I love me some Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson is my favorite DC character, and I can't wait to see him make a better debut than what Chris O'Donnell did for him in Batman Forever, which I will maintain that they're not as bad as people think they are. If you take them at their campy level, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin are at least fun. They're not the best Batman movies, but they're fun.
You just reminded me. I was about to make the comment like, well, we've never had a live-action Dick Grayson, and then you just reminded me of Batman.
That's how forgettable it
Forever,
is.
Batman and Robin.
Well, I think it was Marlon or Damon Wayans. I wish I could remember, but Tim Burton actually had a costume ready to go for one of the Wayans brothers to be Dick Grayson.
Marlon.
Yeah, and I think that would have been cool, but the concept from what I've read is just ridiculous, and I wish I could remember it right now, but I can't.
The only thing I remember about that is why I remember that casting is that they actually had to pay a penalty fee to him and a penalty fee to, Lando Calrissian. I forget his actor.
Billy D. Williams.
Billy D. Williams, thank you. They had to pay penalty fees to both of them because they had already signed the contracts with Tim Burton to be Two-Face and to be Dick Grayson, respectively. So I think they're paid each like around $5 million-ish, if that's the rumor is true, to go away to then get Tommy Lee Jones and Chris O'Donnell.
That's some great casting right there. So our first big topic is James Cameron's comments about Wonder Woman being a step back for women movies. I'm going to read his quote here. All of the self-congratulatory back-patting Hollywood's been doing over Wonder Woman has been so misguided. She's an objectified icon, and it's just male Hollywood doing the same old thing. I'm not saying I didn't like the movie, but to me it's a step backwards. Sarah Connor was not a beauty icon. She was strong, she was troubled, she was a terrible mother, and she earned the respect of the audience through her pure grit. And to me, the benefit of characters like Sarah is so obvious. I mean, why would you put that in your quote from the press? You don't need the I mean. And to me, the benefit of characters like Sarah is so obvious. I mean, half the audience is female. You and I are of differing opinions necessarily on how good Wonder Woman was.
Right.
I don't necessarily disagree with his comments because you and I do agree that there are some cinematography things that definitely didn't need to be there that are continuing to be there. So I'm going to let you start with your point.
Okay, so to put it into context, from what I was looking at is that he's promoting currently the T2 Terminator 2 Judgment Day
3D
3D release, which I think came out last week or the week before.
I think it came out this weekend.
Did it come out this week? Okay. I haven't seen a showing for it, unfortunately. Well, mostly because I own the Blu-rays and the extended editions, so I don't really need a bit of token 3D.
I want to pay $15 to go see a movie I own.
Exactly.
That I can watch in my own home.
So I understand the context is that he's out doing press for that because he spent a lot of his own money doing that, converting it himself, which bravo to him for doing that. But so I understand where he's coming from, that he believes it's a step backwards. There's a lot of self-congratulation. I do see a lot of stuff going on banging about, I saw a thing today, Warner Brothers currently leading the summer box office, all due to Wonder Woman. And they also have another set of movies that were successful. But the part of the objectification that I understand that I completely agree with is that the trailers for Wonder Woman and Justice League and the movie do well, they sex her up. There's a lot of shots of her upskirt with her doing that slide kick thing she does to seemingly everybody.
In super slow motion.
In super slow motion, so you see. Apparently, she's wearing leather underwear. There's that shot where that really bothered me. Where I believe it was the first Justice League trailer where it showed her like kicking somebody's butt, and then she got knocked down and Superman saves her, and the camera is like right between her legs, and he like lands and beats up a guy to knock her away. Like, why would you? Wonder Woman really need saving? And there's also the part that bothers me is that all the Amazons are in high heels and boob armor, and so I kind of agree with his statement that it's a bit of a step backwards because we have a very strong woman character. Not saying there hasn't been other strong women characters. It's the highest grossing movie in the U.S. this year.
Until Star Wars.
Until Star Wars, of course. My personal thing is I don't agree with all the people attacking him. Saying like, you're old, you're a terrible... I've seen the comments, you're a terrible husband, you've been divorced 3 times, what are you talking about? Linda Hamilton said that you're the worst man she's ever met in her life. She's an ex-wife, of course she's going to say that. But I don't know. I just don't understand all the hate all the sudden aggression against him for. It's true. He did point out she's been objectified in all the trailers. The movie did it too. Okay, I understand. Move on.
I don't disagree on a lot of those points. The upskirt shots in slow motion annoy me largely because it seems like Gal Gadot just like mastered that move. And they're like, we're just going to keep doing that. Mm-hmm. And it just seems it's tired after seeing it in the trailers 100 times because of how often we saw the TV spots and all that using that same shot. Mm-hmm. And when we got to that point in the movie, I was like, oh, here comes the upskirt shot. I don't mind that because, again, part of it is you have a woman director who is the one signing off in these shots. And you also have the fact that if Gal Gadot likes the shot, why can't we? I mean, people are gonna objectify it no matter what. It's a double-edged sword when it comes to equality with women. You know, people don't want them objectified, but if you're a sexy woman and you're comfortable with yourself, you should be allowed to flaunt what you want. And if Gal Gadot wants to flaunt that because she mastered that move, more power to her. The boob armor, I'm definitely behind. I don't think the boob armor needed to be as prominent as it was. Like, you could just have a little bump. It doesn't have to be both, and it doesn't have to be as like prominently separated. But I think part of the justification for that is it wasn't actually made for Diana. She kind of stole that armor. But then you also have the Amazonian armor where everybody kind of has it. Yeah. But the Wonder Woman costume, I mean, technically it wasn't made for Diana, so you can get around it that way.
Right.
But you also have to take into account that the suit was actually originally signed off by Zack Snyder, who is not known for his... Yes, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of give and take. I enjoyed the hell out of Wonder Woman. It didn't really break any new ground as far as storytelling goes, but it did show that audiences are willing to go to a movie with a woman lead and enjoy the hell out of it as long as you treat it well and with respect. James Cameron and his comments, again, they're not necessarily wrong, but I think him kind of going back to his own well, saying like, look what I did with Sarah Connor, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because you could go and take almost any other woman lead in a successful movie and be like, hey, look at this person.
Right.
But he went to his own character well, and it just, that's where it kind of went off the rails for me. He just came off as more egotistical.
Well, he immediately did what he was ripping them on for. He's self-congratulating himself. He's like, this movie didn't break any new ground. Hollywood is just patting itself on the back. I broke new ground. Let me pat myself on the back. You know. So I mean, I understand that. I just saw so many like people coming after him and ripping him and talking about his marriage and stuff. I'm like, and I was really upset because provide a rebuttal versus a personal attack. Like, point out where he objectified Sarah Connor or where he objectified Ripley, or where.
Well, I mean, Ripley, she's walking around in her underwear for almost 20 minutes of the movie.
Was that Alien?
Oh, that was Alien.
Yeah, that was Alien.
That's right. Yeah.
I believe Alien.
Alien was Ridley Scott. Aliens was his.
I believe it was
But he also didn't create Ripley, so I mean, he could have gone to Ripley.
Oh, he could have gone to Ripley, yeah. Or, I mean, then again, if he wants to try to congratulate himself, he could mention, True Lies, except there's that entire stripper scene. Or Titanic, except there's that entire nude scene. So
that he drew himself.
That he drew himself, which is a little creepy when you think about it.
He's an auteur Michael Bay.
Aw. Don't put him down.
He just knows how to make a good movie, but he also knows that he's doing what he does best, and he just puts himself in there. Like, I've seen people talk about how Jack Dawson is very close to James Cameron as far as phonetically and as far as many syllables and all that. So, he's like inserting himself there subliminally,
Yeah.
just like Michael Bay did with Michaela. I think her name was Michaela Bayless or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Shia LaBeouf's girlfriend in the first two Transformers movies. It wasn't just enough to make her a sex toy. He also had to name her after himself.
Again, creepy when you think about it. I'm going to make the lead's girlfriend me.
Yep.
And then direct.
Because she's so sexy, just like me. Yeah. Michael Bay's a weird dude.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's make of it what you will. People enjoyed Wonder Woman. People didn't think it was anything new. The internet community thinks it's Captain America, the first Avenger. I can see the similarities, but Captain America is my favorite Marvel character, and I can definitely differentiate the two. There are similarities, but just because there's similarities doesn't mean it's the same.
No, I think it was different enough on its own to stand on its own. I just don't think it was necessarily that great. And personally, I've never been happy with the casting of Gal Gadot, just because when I picture Wonder Woman, I don't necessarily picture someone, not to shame her or anything, someone as slight as her.
She's
and especially when they're putting her next to like Batman and Superman, and it's like, well, she's a god, she doesn't need massive muscles. Why does Superman need massive muscles? He literally is a god too. And I think she did enough to carry the film, and I think they paired her very well with a very charismatic actor who helped carry the film as well. Mm-hmm. I am curious what the next one is going to be about. I understand they're skipping World War II.
I heard they're either going to do 1977 as kind of like an homage year for
Mm-hmm.
Linda Carter, or they're jumping into the 80s. I forget exactly what, but I think they're going to do something to homage Linda Carter in that one.
Okay, that'd be cool.
But yeah, when Wonder Woman 2 comes out, if they don't retcon it or reboot it with Flashpoint, it's going to be fine. It'll be good. Patty Jenkins is pretty much guaranteed to come back. She's holding out because she wants more money, which is fine, because she's holding out to get paid what a male director who had just made a huge box office hit would get offered for doing a sequel. She doesn't want, you made this much, we're going to give you this much of a percentage increase.
Right.
She wants what's fair, and I applaud her for that.
No, I think she I am kind of curious as to what her Thor 2 would have been like. I've heard there's been all the rumors leaking out about how her script was better than what they filmed, which honestly, with what we got,
it's not that
anything
hard.
would have been better than what we got, because you can tell that there's some massive shears were taken to that film. Why would you cast Christopher Eccleston as your villain and give him 30 seconds of screen time? Why would you suddenly pad out all that Earth stuff? So I really am curious as to what her version of Thor 2 would have been, and I think she did enough with Wonder Woman to showcase that there's a style and a story she can tell, that she should be given the money to go off and write her own paycheck with Wonder Woman 2. I do want to see what she has to do. I just hope that the fight choreographers and directors of photography or whoever is the one putting the camera on the ground all the time whenever Gal Gadot is within 6 inches needs to stop that.
Yeah, the Zack Snyder slow motion stuff didn't bother me that much, because I feel like it was meant to show how quickly the Amazons move.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that as far as someone watching this person on screen for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other ways to do that after you do it the first couple of times.
Yeah.
You don't have to keep going back to it. And I think that kind of it showed a lot of Zack Snyder's hand in it by doing all those slow motion shots,
Yeah.
which I'm not that opposed to. I'm not as annoyed as it as other people are, but it gets old.
It does.
And especially when you're expecting it and you see it in the trailers. When you see it in the trailers as often as we did, especially that one upskirt shot that we've been talking about, it loses its luster and it loses its value.
Yeah.
Make of it what you will. We both, as far as I can tell, enjoyed Wonder Woman. It's just...
Yeah, and there's no reason to personally attack a guy for offering his opinion.
Yeah, especially when he was asked for it. It's not like he was running around with a sign saying, I made better heroes. In lighter conversation, you had told me about the new live-action Tick show on Amazon.
Yes.
It made the unfortunate decision to come out the same weekend as The Defenders and has kind of gotten lost in the fray.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know if that's just an Amazon Prime thing, that people are like, oh, pay attention to Netflix. Prime also did this over here. Yeah, last year, part of the Amazon's pilot season, which I believe also included Jean-Claude Van Johnson, which is Jean-Claude Van Damme's like spoof about that he's secretly a secret agent, which if you haven't seen that pilot, you should watch it. But they also brought back the Tick, and the pilot was a little rough. I wasn't sure if the Tick was supposed to be part of Arthur's psychosis or however they were trying to treat him, but I got a chance to earlier this week watch all 6 episodes they offered us, which was the pilot plus 5 more. There's 6 more coming sometime, I think, in the spring, and I was pleasantly surprised that they actually were given the creative license to run out and actually give us a proper Tick show, which I've really liked.
I literally watched them this morning. I didn't get through all of them. I got through the first 2 episodes before the kid woke up, and then we watched another one when she took her nap, and then we watched the 4th one later in the day after we were done doing our morning errands. And the pilot episode was actually really good because I've seen the trailers. Like the ads have popped up on YouTube and all that, and I know the Tick is real. I know it is, but throughout the first episode, I'm just sitting there thinking, is Arthur crazy? Is this show just one big delusion? What's going on here? And it does it really well, and I was surprised at how well they told that story until I think either by the end of the 2nd episode or the beginning of the 3rd, you find out that Arthur is not actually crazy.
Right.
And it's surprisingly well done.
That's the reveal with Dot, right? His sister. Yeah.
Arthur's walking around in a blue poncho in his moth suit, and he's realizing that everyone's talking about this guy in a blue suit or the guy in blue, and he's just realizing, I'm the guy in blue. Oh no, what am I doing? And Tick walks up beside him, and Dot's just, who's Arthur? Who's that? Oh, that you can see him? Hey, I'm the Tick.
Yeah.
And the guy who plays the Tick, Peter Serafinowicz, he's not a very well-known actor. He's a British actor. He had I know you didn't watch Parks and Rec. He did a small guest spot in one of the later seasons where Chris Pratt's character and Adam Scott's character go to London to ask for funds for one of their charities. And he plays this really kind of oafish, rich duke, and he's just like, I have 5 helicopters that I have no idea what to do with. Oh, and by the way, I have these drones. Let's go play with them.
Nice.
And his character hits it off with Chris Pratt's character because they're both just these lovable oafs. And he's just like, I'll give you guys the money, no worries. I don't know if that's his actual voice. I assume it is when he's talking as the Tick. He's got the voice.
No, he's nailed that. I was afraid he was going to be a bad knockoff of Patrick Warburton, because there's just something about his style of comedy, whether Patrick Warburton was doing Putty from Seinfeld, or whether he was doing the Tick, or whether he's Joe, or whether he is Kronk from Emperor's New Groove, and then the TV show in Kronk's New Groove. There's something about his voice, works with the styling, that just really sold it for the brief 9 episodes we had with the Tick. And of course the suit, of course you can't do much about the suit. The suit has to look like a certain way, but within about, I don't know, 5-10 minutes of just seeing him on screen, and he's over exuberance of wanting to be a good guy and completely misunderstanding everything Arthur is telling him, that he wants to be left alone, he just sold it for me, and I'm assuming that is his real voice. And
yeah, there's some moments where you can tell it's ADR, and but like he has that commanding Tick voice, and it's great, and he has that sincerity behind it too. But yeah, if you were to try and pull off Warburton, you're not going to do it.
No.
The only person that can pull off Warburton is the voice actor. What's his name? I'm blanking. Troy Baker. Troy Baker does an amazing Patrick Warburton.
I'm going to have to look that up.
If you haven't seen it, look up Twisted Tunes on YouTube and watch some of their stuff. And Troy Baker does an amazing Patrick Warburton. It's great. He also does an amazing Joker. He was the Joker on Batman Arkham Origins. So Troy Baker has some chops. But yeah, Patrick Warburton, he does have that voice that just, whatever he does, it just works with what he gets cast in. Peter Serafinowicz, I'm not using my notes to look at this. So Serafinowicz, I've been practicing it all day. Peter Serafinowicz, I don't know, I think he is that tall, or they've done some like camera tricks to make him look a little bit taller, but the suit looks fine. There's a great moment, my wife picked up on it from the pilot to the second episode, because obviously they didn't know if they were getting a second episode after filming. The suit looks a little different, and Arthur and the Tick are in an alley, and Arthur just gives him a quick up and down. He just goes, "Your suit, it looks a little different." And Tick goes, "Really?" And that's it. That's all they do. There's some great laugh out loud moments in this show, and it's surprising that it's not getting talked about as much. Maybe it's because it's suffering from only having 6 episodes. I don't know, but I mean, I wasn't going in expecting much because I didn't watch The Tick as a kid. I was all about Power Rangers on Fox, and then I would move over to One Saturday Morning on ABC.
Yeah, I was not expecting a whole lot, other than I just remember watching those 9 episodes and watching some of the cartoon. I've never read any of the comics. I don't know if the comic style is supposed to be ultra graphic or just ultra satire.
Yeah, that was surprising too.
But the TV show surprised me that it was super graphic, because there's a scene where Overkill shows up and he starts slaughtering all these people to get to either get or assist Arthur. You're not sure if he's trying to kill him or not. And all of a sudden, limbs are flying. There's blood spraying. Like, they already dropped a curse word or two before, the F-bomb and stuff. It's like, okay, well, it's an adult show. Sure, that's fine. Whatever, TVMA. And then all of a sudden, there's limbs and blood and gore, and I'm like, or it's just definitely R.
It became 300 very quickly.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking, oh, okay, you get a shit at the very beginning of the show when Superion shows up, and you're like, okay, PG to PG-13, whatever, that's fine. And then you get an F-bomb in a limousine a little later, and you're like, okay, I mean, that's still kind of PG-13. They're allowed 1. And then you get to the end of that episode, and Overkill just goes full on 300 Spartan on someone.
Yep.
And the blood is obviously intentionally fake. It's not like they're going for graphic realism. But yeah, it was a little sudden. You're not expecting it. It works. It works for the show because, again, they're not trying to be hyper violent. They're just using it as an effect.
Yeah, I think it works because they've left the Tick as his naive man-child, overpowered personality type. He'll get punched in the face or get blown into a wall or through a wall or something, and he'll just kind of chuckle and be like, "Oh, that was great," and you're laughing along with him. And then they show then the bad guys are really bad guys. They're killing people, massacring people. Their plans to get back the suit from they want basically the first 6 episodes are about the Tick running into Arthur, Arthur ends up with the suit, and then the bad guys want to get the suit back, but they can't quite get it back right because Arthur has, in theory, already bonded with it in some manner, because of a retina reading. He was the first person to put it on, so he gets it, and so it's just the Tick trying to ingrain himself into Arthur's life, believing that Arthur's his best friend ever, and then Arthur trying to get rid of the Tick, but then the bad guys want him, and hilarity and a lot of blood ensues.
Yeah, it's very much Arthur Begins, and it does it very well. And I'm not familiar with the cartoon or the comic, but it definitely has its own life as far as I can tell. And the only thing that I really want anything extra out of this is I want Batman well. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on in the background, and they talk about very large man VLM, I think.
Yep.
And he shows up at one point. and there's a bunch of stuff going on in the background that I'm sure is alluding to more stuff within the Tick lore. But I just want Batman well.
Yeah.
I love the idea of that character and the ripoff of it.
Yeah, I hope they're heading that way because at one point they mentioned there's like a superhero register, and which is used to great effect when Arthur tries to lie his way out of a police station, and they've been hinting that there's other beings out there, but for some reason they're not showing up at the moment, probably because the Tick and Arthur are just not on anybody's radar. We have 6 more episodes coming in spring, and I'm hoping they get here soon, and hopefully more people keep watching this, because Amazon needs some shows that I actually really want to watch.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Is Amazon, it's a complimentary service if you're on Prime. Essentially, Amazon Video is a nice service, but you have to pay $100 to be able to access it.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're a student, then you get it for $50, or you can be on a monthly plan and pay basically $120 a year.
Right.
So I think that kind of hurts the Tick in a way, but Amazon has a good track record for good shows. The Man in the High Castle. I was going to say The Man in the Sky. That was obviously not right. And then they've got the Jeffrey Tambor transgender show.
Transparent.
Transparent, yeah.
I've heard Mozart in the Jungle is really good. I have a few friends who rarely recommended that to me. I don't know if it's just being lazy or whatever, but when I pull up my PS4 and I get my media display, it's like Netflix, Amazon, Hulu. What's on Netflix?
Yeah, it's the default. It's become ingrained in us. But yeah, if you have Prime, or if you have $10 to throw away that you're not planning on sending to the Houston Relief Fund, give it a try. I'd say for $10, it's worth at least watching The Tick, and at least a few other shows that they have on there. They just uploaded the full run of Avatar: The Last Airbender, plus they have Legend of Korra. 2 great shows, in my opinion. Some of the best animation shows that I've ever seen. So if for nothing else, $10 a month for something like that is pretty great. But yeah, The Tick is definitely worth checking out, I would say. I think not being on Netflix or Hulu kind of hurts it. But if you have Prime, watch it, enjoy it. It's fun. Even if you don't know anything about the show, like I said, I have no attachment to the characters until now. Like this show has made me care about these characters, and I really kind of want to find a way to watch the old Fox shows just to see what the difference was.
Yeah,
nothing else.
Watch The Tick.
All right, so that was a fun segment talking about The Tick. Now it's time to move on to the worst first show ever topic. Game of Thrones a week after it ended. It's the most, well, I shouldn't say ended, the season ended.
Right.
It's the most watched episode on HBO. I think maybe, did it break the TV record as far as TV shows that aren't the Super Bowl?
They always play with their numbers. They said that episode got like 30 million people, which would make it the most watched show of the year, I believe, other than the Super Bowl. Who knows how accurate that number is, because HBO does their own fuzzy accounting, as all TV shows these days.
And they also
do.
have their own fuzzy links or leaks.
Yeah. I believe it did reach 16 million. They said watch that night, and they said over the week, I think they said 30 million watched it as on some re-airing, because they count first viewership re-airings across the entire week. So, I mean, if you were trying to watch something else on HBO and you saw 5 minutes of it, I believe they count towards watching Game of Thrones. Not that a bunch of people aren't watching it.
Not even 10% of the episode. We'll count it.
Yeah. Not saying that, people are watching. People are certainly watching. Why, at this point in time, people are watching, I'm not exactly sure, but what can we do about that?
So this season was not without its flaws.
No.
You sound so happy. No. It had its flaws. No. It did a lot to just progress the story. I don't really know why they couldn't do 10 episodes outside of, the budget of including the dragons. I don't know why they couldn't just slow things down a little bit to 10. They did. There was a lot of story elements that just kind of got pushed to the wayside because they're trying to get to the end, and you can tell they're racing to that end. The very first episode we had was Dragonstone. It started off very strong. It started with Arya magically appearing and
Oh, the Freyed dinner scene.
Yeah,
Yes,
murdering
yes.
all the Freys in the same place that the Red Wedding happened. Which I guess we should have said, spoiler alert for Game of Thrones season 7. If you haven't seen all of this season, we're pretty much going to break down the entire season. So
Yep.
be prepared to be spoiled if you haven't seen it. So yeah, Arya kills all the Freys except for one of Walder Frey's wives, and he tells her tell everyone that the North remembers.
Right.
And then she kind of goes off on her excursion, planning on going to King's Landing to go kill Cersei.
Yep.
And then we kind of don't see her the rest of the episode.
For like 3 episodes,
Something like that. Well, no, she talks to Ed Sheeran.
Right.
Very awkwardly.
Oh, yeah.
And
She briefly meets Hot Pie. She briefly sees her wolf. And
which the Hot Pie meeting at least served some sort of storytelling purpose. He was like, "Oh, hey, by the way, did you know that John's in charge of the North now?"
yeah, that was very awkward. That scene was very awkward because that was the one moment that I actually bought into that weird fan theory that she's actually the waif. Because that interaction was so awkward. I'm not sure if they were trying to just portray it as she's been gone so long that she doesn't remember how to interact with old friends, or that they just honestly did not remember how to write dialogue. That scene.
Either one is very possible.
Yeah, I still think she could be the waif. Which, if she is, that is fantastic.
So yeah, we had that, and then John secures loyalties from the Umbers and the Karstarks, which I thought that was actually a really great scene where Sansa's like, "You need to teach them a lesson and kill their line," and John's like, "I'm not gonna have the children suffer for the sins of their fathers."
Yeah.
And I thought that was a great scene, and it showed the dichotomy between what Sansa has learned from Cersei and how she has become a little more ruthless because of what she's endured, where Jon is still very much Ned Stark's illegitimate son. I guess we should say adopted son, given what we know now.
Yeah, no. The few times that they've actually taken to let there be character development, it was really nice. But they barreled through stuff like so quickly. You know, it's just they just clash heads. Like John's the head of the North now. Sansa's upset about that. Littlefinger's lurking in the background, going good. You know, which I believe that is when we got that great line from Sansa, who Littlefinger lurked up on her and she went, "I'll pretend you said something witty." I was like, oh, that's a good burn.
There's just, but they did go through so much. Like we had Jorah teased in the first episode before after he was sent off by Daenerys to be cured of his grayscale. You had Cersei, who was approached by Euron Greyjoy, which him and his magic map traveling fleet, that was probably the biggest pain in the ass of this season. Was, I make the joke with you constantly that they travel by map, which if you don't know the joke, that's how the Muppets get around. Is they're like, "Oh man, how are we supposed to get to France? We don't have any money for an airplane ticket. We'll travel by map." And then they come out of they do the Indiana Jones thing where they just have the red line go from New York to France, and like, "Hey, that was fast." And I think that's how Euron Greyjoy travels with his fleet. Is he's figured out how to travel by map.
That's the only way to explain.
Because there's some logistical problems there. He got from the Iron Islands to King's Landing to Casterly Rock, back to King's Landing, and then he ended up where after that? I'm blanking.
Well, the Casterly Rock was the second travel by map.
That's right.
The first one is that he went from the Iron Islands, met Cersei and Jaime, had the brief interaction, which that I actually honestly kind of like. Euron, I find him amusing just because he seems like the only person on that show who's actually having a good time.
Yeah.
It's like everyone else is like, we've been doing this stuff for 7 years and wearing this ridiculous stuff, and we have lines to fill. And he's like, "I'm happy to be here, everybody."
I'm wearing eyeliner. Look at how different I am. I've seen things.
This is fantastic. I'm now going to go hop on my boat. I'm the only one who has a boat consistently. You guys don't have boats. I actually really like that. But the first time was he said, she's like, "I'm not going to marry you." He's like, "Well, what if I bring you a present?" And then he sacks an entire fleet out near Dragonstone and brings back the Dornish lady and Yara. That was the first quick travel, which he somehow snuck up on all of Daenerys' fleet and Yara's fleet from behind. I guess they don't have a crow's nest, and sacked them, and then came back and was like, here you go. And then there was the magical Casterly Rock travel, which doesn't make sense.
And that the Casterly Rock thing was actually a really nice growth moment for Jaime, where they even let him say, I learned something from my defeat to Robb Stark, where he abandoned one post or had like minimal forces there and just went and did another thing where they took Highgarden. And that was a great move by Cersei too.
Yes.
I don't know if those are that seems too smart to not be something from George R.R. Martin's notes. So that's probably going to be in the book, because again, you can tell when the writers are writing and when they're writing from the notes.
Yes.
They're a little too kitschy in certain things, which in a few moments that we'll discuss a little later on, they work.
Yep.
But for the most part, you can tell when the writers are kind of on their own and things just kind of magically happen, or they don't seem to make a lot of sense. But the Highgarden moment where the crown is bankrupt, King's Landing has no money, they're in massive debt, and Cersei just says, I'll have your money in 2 weeks.
Oh, the Iron Bank showed up.
Yeah,
right?
the Iron Bank, because she's trying to get them to fund her for her war against Daenerys as it's coming up.
Right. She wants she needs to pay off the loans that were, I believe she inherited those loans from Robert Baratheon, who had all those loans, but then those are also loans that I believe Littlefinger had taken without them knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As the master of coin.
Because he's had to take loans because Robert wouldn't stop spending, and while they always say Littlefinger was great at making money, he wasn't able to make enough money. Tyrion, I believe, when he was the Hand, briefly showed it. So that storyline is paying off. So she wants the money to pay back the Iron Bank, otherwise the Iron Bank has its military, and then she wants to pay it off and then take out a new loan to get the Gold Company, which is a bunch of sellswords.
Yep. And kind of backtracking to the first episode, there's a lot of good stuff that happens in that episode, but the very end, the final 3 minutes are so drawn out of Daenerys returning to Dragonstone.
No.
I say returning with air quotes because she's never actually been there.
Right.
And it just, you just know how it's going to end. You just, you feel it in your cliche gut. And she gets to the table where their war table where they strategize and have their plans. And she just goes, shall we begin? And the first thing that pops into my head is Benedict Cumberbatch's Khan. Now, shall we begin? And I'm just like, you couldn't have chosen a more cliche thing to say in that moment.
Right.
And the writers got it right.
Well, the part that bothered me about that is so Dragonstone is according to the map, it's across the bay from King's Landing. It's attached to this peninsula that's, I don't know how far that is, 25 miles, 100 miles, whatever it is. It's right over there. And I understand that's where Robert was. Not Robert. That's where Stannis was.
And they have a brief allusion to that where you see one of his banners with the stag and the heart sitting in one of the hallways, which I thought that was a nice little touch.
Yeah, but
no one's been in there since.
But why? I mean, it's a military stronghold. Why wouldn't there at least be some kind of watchers or some kind of guardian or a small garrison, some kind of presence? They could have shown 3 ships and a dude leaning against the tower going, oh, maybe we should run. Instead, it just seems like this entire majestic castle stronghold has been abandoned, even though it's a strategic military point for the entire bay in King's Landing. That's the part that bothered me about that.
The Lannisters have been too busy trying to figure out who's king next. They've had 3 kings in 3 years, and now Cersei's queen.
Yeah. Well, maybe they ran out of funds for that. There we go. There's the explanation. They ran out of funds to guard that. Or maybe they don't realize Stannis is dead since we never saw his body.
True. And then Sam had some fun adventures in the Citadel at Old Town.
Gross.
Yeah, scooping out some poop and changing out sick beds and
transitions shots of gross to food to gross to pus.
Yeah, I get what they were going for, that Sam was literally getting the shit jobs, but it didn't need to go on that long. You could have done that in 2 sequences, and like, okay, Sam's not doing what he was hoping to be doing,
Right.
and he gets a jump scare from Jorah, and the interactions between him and the High Maester that he works with, that's training him, is the interactions they have are great, and it makes me a little sad that there was no real growth. There was just constantly the teacher doesn't listen to the pupil when it comes to the important stuff, and they're just like, oh, he's delusional, it's fine.
Yeah, no, that some of his interactions are good, and it does kind of lean credit to the theory that there's a theory from the books, as well as I think people have kind of accepted for the show, which is that the Maesters have way more knowledge than anyone knows, and they just don't want to share it, or they just don't care enough to. So I mean, so some of that interaction of like, Sam really wants to learn. He wants to take care of Gilly. He wants to take care of the kid. But he's like looking through books, wants to assist, and the Maesters are all, that chamber pot's not clean enough.
Yeah.
It kind of gives credit to some of that.
And Sam also gets credit for curing Ser Jorah. He goes through a very painful to watch and probably painful to feel procedure of apparently having to cut off all of the grayscale and then having to like suck out whatever pus is underneath as well. It is a very not for the faint of heart scene to watch. When they were just sitting on Jorah's face, I honestly had to chuckle a little bit, just because I couldn't tell if the actor was acting for pain or if he just got to a point where he's just kind of like chuckling to himself, trying to figure out like, how do I act like I'm in pain? And I mean, it's something that you can only imagine how painful that sort of thing actually is, though.
Right.
So you don't know how you actually would react to that kind of pain. But he gets cured, and he goes off to see Dany, and he and Sam have a nice farewell. And then Sam gets probably the best recognition he probably could have expected from the Maesters, where he was told not to do anything about Ser Jorah because he was going to lose his mind in about 6 months. The grayscale would take him over in about 6 weeks.
Yep.
And then Sam's like, I'm going to save you because I knew your dad. And it creates a nice symmetry between everyone. And then the head Maester that's training him is like, you cured him? How did you do that? I followed the instructions. What? Said every man watching the show ever. How do you follow the instructions and do it right? That's not how it works. And it is a really great moment, and I appreciated that the Maester actually said, nice job. Now here's your punishment. You have to go transcribe all of these journals that are rotting. And Sam's like, what?
Yeah. The only thing I wish would have been a little bit more of that scene is that the Maesters would have been like something along the lines of like, good, now do it for everyone else too. Kind of like, send them off like, well, damn, there's a cure. All right, let's get this word out, or let's do the scientific principle of let's try it on another person. Instead, it was just kind of like, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, you're gonna be punished.
Yeah, it definitely just kind of leaves it to the wayside. But I mean, like we've already said a couple of times now, they were just trying to move on.
Yeah.
They and like you're saying, maybe there's something to the Maesters where they've known that there's this cure to grayscale. They just don't want to do it because of how arduous it is. So it could just be a number of things, and in the long run, it's not that important now that Jorah's cured. Like, Jorah's the only grayscale person that we care about anymore, because the other one got burned at the stake.
Oh.
Took you a second.
Now I'm sad.
We also have Jon Snow and Dany meeting for the first time at the recommendation of Tyrion and Melisandre. Melisandre hides because she knows that if Jon sees her again, she's gonna be dead.
Yep.
She's gonna get dead. And so she has a pretty nice moment with Sir Davos, I believe. Was it Sir Davos? No, it was Varys.
Yeah.
Yeah, Varys.
Yeah, I like that moment.
Yeah, there was a really nice moment where Varys is like, hey, you why aren't you going down to see your boy? and she's just like, it's complicated, don't worry about it. And Varys says, you know, you should probably leave Westeros for no real understanding except maybe between them, because we don't know. I mean, there's obvious reasons that we do know, like Jon or Dany are going to be the leader of Westeros, and she's not going to be welcome here anymore.
No, she's kind of on both their lists.
It's a really nice moment, but she also kind of leaves a little bit of a prophecy saying that she has to die in this story, and she has to die in this strange land just like Varys. So they allude to something for next season, at least, between the two of them.
Yeah, which I did like that moment between them, because Varys and her have kind of been in this weird flux of kind of without a purpose. They had solid purposes and now kind of seem to not know how to utilize them. But I actually like that they had a good moment of these two outlying characters who were super important, have done some very, very questionable things, and now acknowledging that their time is about over. I like that. I also hope that with Melisandre acknowledging that she's going to go soon, that we also get to find out who it's from, because she made the prophecy to Arya, I believe it was early season 2, where she looked into Arya's eyes and talked about all the faces that she knew she was going to kill, and then said, we'll meet again later in your life, or something like that.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
So I'm hoping that callback comes up and they haven't forgotten about that, because maybe Arya has to take her out at Jon's orders, or she just gets in the way somehow.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that still needs to be wrapped up in season 8. One of the biggest fan moments for the show this season was Jon and Dany finally meeting, which obviously that didn't go as planned. Tyrion expected him to bend the knee. He wasn't expecting him to be the king of the North. But one of the things that I've found very curious about this entire season was that no one really questioned why Jon was no longer at the Wall.
That's true. I did like the moment of the meeting, which is like, this is Daenerys Targaryen, 57,000 titles later, and then the very just kind of Jon Snow, King of the North.
Yeah,
that was it. But yeah, no, and there was a brief mention of where he mentioned that Jon was dead, and Jon's just like,
Well, he said that he took a knife to the heart.
Yeah,
and he was like, metaphorical heart, or metaphorical knife to the heart. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we're good here. I'm not dead. Yeah,
I'm not the Walking Dead.
Yeah, that does seem kind of have been brushed under the rug a little bit. I mean, I understand that Jon's watch is over and he killed all the people who killed him. Questionable scene, in my opinion. I mean, they were doing their job literally to kill him because he was acting like a traitor in their mind. But yeah, no one has kind of like really seemed to acknowledge how he's become King of the North, or why this Night Watch bastard is King of the North. Because in theory, as a Snow, he should have to be legitimized somehow, and I don't remember anyone legitimizing him, because only Stannis would have been able to. But
I think it's just because the North has kind of has declared itself as its own entity, so they're not necessarily subservient to the laws of the land anymore. They can make up their own laws, and they're like, we're going to follow Jon because we're fickle.
Yep. Yeah, I just always found that a little weird, because I'm still hoping Sansa, in my opinion, has a little more legitimate claim, being that she is, a legitimate child. She she's a Stark, but also with the majority of the Tullys dead, she's the oldest living Tully. And then she also should in theory still be recognized as Ramsay Bolton's ex-wife, despite how she killed him. So in theory, she should have those households underneath her, but they kind of went with Jon, which they went with Jon, and I can understand why she's a little irked about that. But no, there was no real, how are you King of the North? Why are you King of the North? Aren't you supposed to be on a wall?
Yeah, they just kind of stopped talking about it for some reason. And that kind of bugged me. But again, as far as the end game of the story, it doesn't really impact anything.
Not too much, no.
I mean, one of his best friends are now the Lord Commander of the Wall, or the Night's Watch that he was at. Yep. So you just say, we pardoned him.
He's good.
He went above and beyond his service, and you could just be vague about it. It doesn't leave much.
Yeah.
But that kind of bugged me. But the meeting of Jon and Dany for the first time was interesting. Mm-hmm. I think there was also right after he had found out from Sam that Dragonstone was literally built on a mountain of dragon glass.
Right. Yes.
And that was why he had to go personally instead of sending a messenger or just Davos in general. But it definitely shows Jon's character because he's the one that has to go do this because reasons. And it's showing where Sansa is trying to prevent the Lords of the North from already betraying Jon from being their king for... I don't even know. The show has jumped around so much. This season could have taken place in a year. It could have taken place in 3 weeks. I don't even know anymore. But it just... The Lords... And like you said, I think Sansa has a better claim, and I think she is doing the right thing so far.
Yeah.
By not just being like, I'm the queen. She's being loyal to her family, or at least what she assumes is her family.
Yeah.
And being a good lady of Winterfell. She's not just being self-serving. She's trying to do what's best for the North.
Yeah, I think the North is definitely a little fickle, mostly because anytime someone from the North goes to the South, they lose their head, literally, metaphorically. So yeah, the King of the North should be in the North, but I understand why he went South, and he has to get. He's still at this point in the end game of the last 13 episodes. Unbelievably, he is still really the only one who knows that the White Walkers are out there. Sansa doesn't seem to really care. The North doesn't seem to kind of care. The Night's Watch does definitely care. The Wildlings definitely care, but it's trying to explain that, hey, I have to go south because something even norther than us is going to come. They're like, and King of the North is supposed to be King of the North. We'll find another king. Give us 5 minutes.
Yeah. So going back to the Casterly Rock raid, that was very interesting, mostly because of when we find out that Jaime actually is not there defending Casterly Rock because Casterly Rock is broke. They're invading Highgarden, which Highgarden isn't expecting it, and Olenna Martell is just like... That scene bothered me because I get Olenna Martell is vengeful and she just wants as many Lannisters and Lannister men to die. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, she seems pretty content to die. And that scene just seems like she should have just said, lay down your swords, let them come. Save as many of the Highgarden lives as she could. Yeah,
that interaction kind of bothered me because it seemed like just wrapping up plot. They were wrapping up basically the last tangents of the Dorne plot, and did we even care anymore at that point? They have Yara in prison. They have I always forget her name.
Sand. She's Sand.
Yeah, they have the Sand.
Sand Snakes.
They have the Sand Snakes all killed except for one. They have
their mother.
They have the mom. So which, by the way, to go back to that, the scene where she poisons the daughter to die in front of her, I love, because that shows just how twisted Cersei was. Mm-hmm. But I get that they're just wrapping it up, and I do love the interaction with Jaime and Olenna, but it just seemed a little, let's just wrap this up. We're going to have a bit of a fight so we can show that there was a little bit of a struggle, and then we're going to have this great character interaction followed by forlornly staring out a window while I die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the conversation between Jaime and Olenna was great, and mm-hmm. I feel like there could have been a lot more done with it. Just because Olenna raises a great point where she says, "I'm a dying woman at this point. Who better to talk to than me about your secrets?"
Yeah.
And Jaime gives her a few things here and there, and basically acknowledges the fact that he is in love with Cersei and mm-hmm. that they have done whatever. And then she lays the bomb that she was the one that killed Joffrey. Mm-hmm. And at this point, she's already drank the poison that killed Jon Arryn at the beginning of the show. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And so she just goes full on, just goes off on this tirade and just says, "Let Cersei know it was me." And it's great. It's a great moment. And you can just see it in Jaime's face where he's like, "Damn it."
Yep.
I let her off too easy.
I promise, I convinced Cersei to let me kill you peacefully, and now you're just taking it back. Which, that was one of the great character moments. It really showed that, that Jaime's actor can act, and that Olenna, we all know she can act. She's amazing. I wish there was a few more great moments like that to stagger throughout this episode of like letting this season, letting the characters just breathe with each other and get to know each other a little bit better. And coming up the next episode or two, we're not going to get that, which is really disappointing.
Yeah.
When we get to the big dragon battle.
Yeah. The first time we see Tyrion and Jaime together, which actually happens after the big dragon battle.
Yeah.
I mean, we can just talk on that pretty quickly. That episode pretty much did nothing but get to the dragons.
Yep.
That episode just dragged and just set up everything coming after it.
Shortest episode they've ever filmed, which was like 48 minutes or 50 minutes.
And probably 15 or 20 minutes of it was the attack of the dragon on the caravan, which when you start really picking up on Hollywood screenwriting, like, you know something's coming when the important stuff is mentioned right away in a scene. The gold that we just took from Highgarden, it's already past our border. We're good.
Yep.
Like, oh, it's already okay. So how is it 10 miles ahead of us or wherever we're at?
It's good.
Yeah, we're good. Okay, well, something bad's about to happen.
There is nothing here at all but some corn and some wine, and that's it.
You just need Officer Barbrady in the background. Move along, people. Nothing to see here. And Dany she snapped at one point, and she just decided she's gonna go burn everyone alive in this caravan, because this is her counteract to having Grey Worm and her Unsullied trapped at Casterly Rock, which that never actually gets resolved. Like, all of a sudden, Grey Worm's there in the finale. How did they get out of there from Euron's fleet?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is I did like the interaction between Tyrion and Jaime, trying to kind of educate her on how to be a nice person. And her solution was like, fine, I won't kill the peasantry. I will just kill everybody outside the walls and show them my dragons.
Yeah.
But I liked watching the battle. I think that was pretty cool. I do have some logistical questions. So your fleet has been sacked at Dragonstone. Your fleet was sacked again at Casterly Rock. But somehow you moved 100,000 Dothraki and their horses across the bay without anybody being aware of it, so they can charge gloriously the pikemen. Okay, I'm not sure if all of it. I mean,
Travel by map,
of course. But I mean, it was great. But then that ending just takes me off, because there was so many good moments where I'm expecting, okay, this is Jaime's death. This is glorious. Jaime
or
dying,
Bronn.
Yeah, Jaime dying trying to take out Daenerys, or Jaime dying trying to take out Dragon, or Bronn going down gloriously, who we've seen transition from Tyrion's sellsword friend to confidant, to Jaime's confidant and friend, to then being denied a castle by Jaime right before all this fighting happens, and then instead he tackles him into the deepest riverbank I've ever seen in my life.
And that's how the episode ends, is Jaime just plummeting to this very deep, the bottom of this very deep river.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know, because the episode ends at, oh shit, what's going to happen? How is he going to get out of there? And in true season 7 form, the next episode begins with Bronn just dragging him out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
We get that Bronn doesn't wear armor. It was established very early in season 1 that he doesn't wear armor because it makes him slow, and it may stop things from happening, but you can also stop them from happening by being faster.
Yeah.
And so he somehow got to the other end of the riverbank, found Jaime, and dragged him back, even though we didn't see Bronn anywhere around him.
No.
And so,
Jaime in full armor with full gold hand, dragged across the riverbank. Right. Okay.
yeah, and that's not the last time we'll see something like this in this season. That was also the same episode. The episode where Bronn drags Jaime out is the episode where Jon is finally let go from Dragonstone to go up north to get a White Walker.
Yes, that was the big plot development of that one, was trying to convince Dany that the White Walkers exist. And then that was also, I believe, when Arya showed up to
Winterfell.
Showed up to Winterfell, and they had that lovely brief comical interaction with the guards of whether or not she's actually Arya Stark, and then she sneaks in and then believe that's also when we saw the fighting between her and Brienne.
Yeah, and that's kind of where all the weird Sansa shit starts too. They once Arya showed up, Sansa's story just became very convoluted and very hard to read, which I think might have been the point.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you need to leave a few hints here and there because if we don't understand what the character is thinking, we don't know how to react to her.
No.
And in this scenario where Grey Worm is being the devil in her ear and we don't know what the angel is saying,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know what's going on in her mind, because we know she's tortured, we know she's kind of damaged because of her experiences over the course of the show, but we didn't know until the very end what was going on, and we don't even know how she got to that conclusion.
No, they mentioned, I think it was Sir Bronze, no, not Sir Bronze, Bran's actor mentioned that there was a conversation between the two of them that was cut out, that I don't think he said they ever filmed it, which is also reminds me that Sir Bronn mentioned that there was this interaction with Jaime and him and Tyrion, of them kind of briefly catching up of like, hey, I haven't seen you in like 4 years. Hey, yeah, it's nice. So you're hanging out with my brother now. That's cool. Kind of thing. That was also cut out. So there just seems that there was some plans that were just left on the floor. So Jaime returns back to Cersei. Everything got burned down. Tyrion's alive. Sansa's doing some stuff. I don't know. It just was another. Episode 5 was just another kind of rest episode. That its big ending was, let's all go north and catch ourselves a White Walker.
Well, I remember that episode also started off in a way that you were not a fan of, because Dany's whole thing is she's going to break the wheel and she's not going to kill everyone. Yeah. But the way this episode starts is, join my army and fight with me or die. Yeah. And that's not very un-Lannister.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Where they kill Sam's parents. I mean Sam's dad and brother.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Sam's brother's just an idiot, and Tyrion's trying to talk both Dany out of killing his son, as well as trying to convince the son to be like, hey, don't be an idiot, don't end your line.
Yeah. No, I don't know. She doesn't seem to be able to lead other than in the mad Targaryen manner of, I have dragons now, so everything must burn.
Yeah.
Join me? Good, you can live. Not burn. And then Tyrion, of course, offers for them to take the black, and that is not accepted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that just... They're trying to build character, but at the same time, they're reverting the character. Mm-hmm. And especially with Dany. She's trying to show she's different from the Lannisters, but the only way she's different is she can burn you alive instead of lop off your head.
Yeah.
So that's definitely still something that needs to be addressed, because what would differentiate Dany from Cersei if and when she takes over the throne. So it's definitely obviously still up in the air how the writers are going to go. I think I know how it's going to go. We'll get into that when we get into season 8 predictions. But the travel to the White and the forming of the Magnificent Seven of Eastwatch.
So awesome.
That was pretty great. Once in this season was 7 episodes.
7.
So at the end of the 6th episode, Jon travels by map from Dragonstone to get to Eastwatch.
Yep.
Which, I mean, I guess Eastwatch isn't too far from Dragonstone after seeing the map, but there's still a lot of stuff that happens really fast.
Right.
And the White Walkers are so flippin' slow.
Mm-hmm.
They just take their sweet ass time. By the end of the 6th episode, or no, would it be the 5th episode? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
By the end of one of the episodes, Jon and his team of Davos, Beric, Thoros, Tormund, Robert's
Hound.
bastard,
Gendry.
Gendry.
Whatever his name is.
Yeah, it starts with a G and it ends with a Dree.
Yeah.
And a couple other guys walk out from the wall, all badass, flying V formation. And then the next episode kicks off, and they've got like 20 red shirts with them.
Yeah, don't forget. Yeah, apparently they picked up some or something. They never explained that. But yeah, while that's happening back at Winterfell, drama's ensuing. That's where Sansa and Arya play the game of faces briefly with the bag.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which leads to
nothing.
Nothing. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and none of it matters really. It seems like Arya's playing Sansa, like basically just trying to get her face so she can be the Lady of Winterfell.
I was really hoping that when Arya said that, like, maybe I'll take your face. I'm like, please, come on, do it.
Yeah, it just, all that stuff just made no sense to me. Like, they have this really nice reunion and they're talking about their dad, and all of a sudden they're just at each other's throats because Littlefinger is whispering in Sansa's ear and playing Arya for some reason. Just because he can't help himself, I don't know.
No, he's lost all motivation since basically season 6. They just keep him around to keep him around.
They keep him around to be a creep.
Basically.
So they do something with Arya and Sansa to build up some drama, and then Jon, I think that was the episode prior when Jon walks out with his Magnificent Seven.
Yep.
And then in the finale, we get Littlefinger getting called out for all of his lies because I'll let you tell your joke. It's great.
What?
Where he streams, he decided to binge watch all of the episodes.
Oh God, yeah. God, I hate that. I love that. Yeah, apparently Bran's motivation to do anything this season was that he binge watched the season he binge watched Game of Thrones from the beginning and was like, holy crap, we're in trouble.
I don't know. Obviously, I don't think you came up with that joke.
No, God, no.
It
just made me laugh.
Yeah, it's a great internet joke where Bran just binge watched all of this previous seasons, and he's like, "Hey, I have some misinformation for you."
Yeah.
That's also the episode where Sam is rewriting out a bunch of the old journals, and Gilly's off reading something, and they drop a massive bomb on us. That I think that was a big detriment to the finale.
Yes.
We'll talk about the bomb afterward, but Gilly lays out a big bomb like 2 episodes before they actually do anything about it. And it just, Bran doesn't have this information just yet for reasons, for dramatic reasons. And they call out Littlefinger for all of his lies because Bran is three-eyed ravening back to season 1 of Game of Thrones, and this scene bothered me only because Littlefinger has made a gigantic living on his lies. And all of a sudden, Bran just calls him out on 3 of them. And he's just like, yeah, okay, I did it. You caught me somehow.
Yeah, what I understand about his Littlefinger's motivation since basically season 6 is that his motivation has always been, well, seemed to be that he was in love with Cad Stark. And, that's part of the reason why he kept trying to assist Sansa, help her bring her about, help her survive the court with Joffrey. Eventually, got her away from that stuff, got her to the Vale. I don't know. I'm still kind of confused as to why he married her off to Ramsay Bolton. I mean, was his intel that bad that Ramsay Bolton was an asshole? I don't know. But then ever since then, there's been a lack of motivation as part. Why isn't he hanging out in the Vale? Why isn't he taking care of the Tully kid? Why is he just walking around Winterfell whispering and doing nothing? I mean, he did have the big moment in season 6 where he and all his Knights of the Vale came and saved Jon's life. Yay.
Purpose fulfilled.
Yeah, purpose fulfilled. What is the point of him now other than to linger around and whisper at her? I mean, I wish they would have done something like proposed marriage between them, to unite the Vale, the Vale and the Starks together and formally do a union. Something motivation other than we should probably kill off your sister and Jon if you can manage it, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then as you said, he got briefly caught on his lies. A teenager decided to shout random catchphrases, and he begs for his life and loses it.
And then Arya slits his throat. It was a very staged scene. Arya shows up like armored to the nines as she does. She's got needle in one hand and then the Valyrian dagger on the other hip, and they just again, it's another very cliched moment where if you you don't expect it, you're gonna be like, what?
Yeah.
But you can see the way it's staged and the way the camera angles are holding that, oh, they're gonna accuse Littlefinger, and it just
For your crimes and treasons and backstabbery and blah 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 blah.
Littlefinger,
Yeah.
Peter Baelish,
Mm-hmm.
and it that scene didn't play well with me just because again he admits to everything too quickly and too easily. It just doesn't play right, and all the Stark kids are like, well, he basically got Scooby-Dooed,
Yep.
and it just
Would have gotten away with it if it weren't for those Stark kids.
if it weren't for that three-eyed raven kid. So that part just kind of, but yeah, I agree. If Peter, if they had Peter say, "Hey Sansa, you know, if we got married, wouldn't that be crazy?" You know,
Yeah.
just doing like drunk girl talk or something.
Something other than trying to badly play the sister off, which I still don't understand why he's just hanging around to hang around.
Yeah, I mean,
the veil is on the other side of the continent. He should be holed up there chilling, or with his military or something. Instead, he's just creeping about.
I feel like the motivation was he was trying to get Sansa to maybe be the one to propose it. I don't know if there's anything to really support that, but I think that might have been his game, is he was trying to eventually get her to say, I need to I need to marry for an alliance. You have an army, you have the veil, let's do this. But they never actually get to saying that.
No.
I did appreciate the fact that Arya knows her sister well enough that when they were playing their little game of like, what do they get out of this? When she was talking with Baelish about, you know, why would Arya be talking about cutting off my face? And he says, I like to play a game. What's the worst thing that they could ever do?
Yeah.
They could kill me. Well, why would they do that?
Right.
Because they want to because Arya would want to become Lady of the Vale. And Arya has said multiple times she's not a lady.
Yeah.
And they just, I appreciate the fact that that Sansa realized that, and that's how they were able to play Scooby-Doo Baelish. And so I appreciated that, but again, they could have just done it in a better way.
Yeah, there was nothing to suggest that they had been either that their motivation was either to play him and or that they were figuring each other out. But there was nothing, because that's, you know, of course, a bunch of inner boards were like, oh, he got played. They've been playing him for like 3 episodes, and I'm like, how do we know that? There was never any suggestion that they were like, you know, like yelling at each other, and then like one of them was like, he's in the corner, right? Yeah, okay, go, keep going for like 5 minutes. Okay, now you threaten me. You threaten me. You know, there was nothing to suggest
Witty
that.
banter.
Exactly. There was nothing to suggest that they were gaming each other or gaming somebody other than Arya's acting a little psychotic, Sansa's acting a little Sansa-y, and suddenly they came to an agreement that I like my face, I'll kill that guy instead.
Well, I mean, again, I feel like it's slightly implied that maybe Bran showed up and said, hey, Bran just stopped being weird for 5 seconds. Like, hey guys, I kind of know what happened to our parents. This guy did it. Let's get him.
Yeah.
But like Bran just served no purpose this season other than to be weird.
Yeah. No. Since we're already pretty much into the 7th episode, yeah, he was just nothing but an exposition machine, and I find it really weird that the very end of episode 7. The whole Danny and Jon have decided to get together kind of thing. Jon's gonna bend the knee and they're gonna be in a boat together, and that the revelation of that Jon is actually that he actually is a Targaryen, that he's the true heir of the Iron Throne. That he was used to be like, no, Jon's not a bastard. You know, I mean, Jon is a bastard, but he's a different bastard. And then Sam goes, oh yeah.
No, he's not.
That marriage was annulled, and Bran's like, what? Since when? And he's like, oh, let me go check out a different part of the timeline.
Yeah.
This is relevant information that I would have never discovered on my own, but I can jump back in time and find out exactly when Peter Baelish decided to say to Varys, chaos is a ladder. You know?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Apparently your radar's a little off.
And among other things, he has seen and heard Jon's birth.
Yes.
and he's heard Lyanna Stark say his name is Aegon Targaryen.
Yes.
What would make him think that saying his name is Aegon Targaryen mean he's a bastard?
Right. Why would? Well, I mean, she would have pronounced his name as Aegon Snow or something.
Aegon Sand.
Sorry, Sand. Yeah.
Yeah,
there we
well, I mean,
go. Yeah.
you never know.
Well, they're in Dorne, so it would be Sand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There was nothing. I mean, it was a moment we've all know has been coming for a long time. He confirms the theory of who Jon's true heritage and who heritage is. It exonerates Ned as being truly the most honest, wonderful man in all of Westeros because he did not have an illegitimate child. That's how good Sean Bean is. He takes care of other people's illegitimate children.
Well, they were legitimate.
Well,
sorry. He was legitimate.
Sorry. Right. He's willing to protect legitimate children from everybody.
By putting them through hell. But of course, he would have been murdered on the spot by Robert.
Oh, Robert would have killed him.
Yeah.
Cersei would have. Somebody would have.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is the moment that was ruined 2 episodes prior because Gilly mentions that Aegon had his marriage annulled. Or not Aegon, Rhaegar had his marriage annulled. And we're sitting on this information for 2 episodes. And then Bran, all it does is make Bran look like a dumbass for 5 seconds.
Yeah, and part of me did... Part of that did bother me just a little bit in that it was Sam who came in. And just because it continues to not give Gilly anything to do.
Yeah.
She could have had her, darning in a corner or something like that and go wait a second, that name's familiar. Something other than Sam bursting in with, I have relevant information to this.
I transcribed this.
Exactly.
So yeah, those are the main plot elements. And then we also have the Battle of the White Walkers where Jon and his Magnificent Seven get attacked by an ice polar bear. Or a white polar bear, not literally not visually white, but like WIGHT, like a White Walker polar bear. And Thoros gets mortally wounded. Essentially, he loses a lot of blood. They seal it with one of their flaming swords. Which that flaming sword, that disappointed me so much. Like visually, it's cool, but if you've not read the books, the second book starts off with Stannis doing his flaming sword bit and with Melisandre and the Lord of Light, and they're talking about how there's this flaming sword, and I think Thoros or one of the other guys eventually talks about how that's not a flaming sword, that was a sword on fire.
Yeah.
And they just the teaser trailer has Thoros, or not Thoros, what's the other guy, the eye patch guy?
Oh, dang it.
Eye patch guy, that's his name.
Yep.
He just tucks the sword and it ignites, and I'm like, holy shit, yes, we're finally getting the flaming sword. Exactly. No, they just have their swords doused in oil or something and they ignite it. That's a bit of a there's no payoff there. I was hoping
cool.
that it's cool, and I mean they use it to good effect. They use it to cauterize Thoros's I don't know why I know Thoros's name, but maybe it's because his name is Thor and you just add an os at the end. But they use it to cauterize his wound, and then he dies of hypothermia because of all the blood loss. And
they apparently used it to keep warm for 2 days. And
they burn him, yeah. And then all because the Hound gets impatient and chucks a rock. The White Walkers realize that the ice is frozen over, and however long it took.
Yeah.
And then the Battle of the Whites against Jon starts. Which again, they're trying to get one White Walker so they can have proof to Cersei that the White Walkers exist and that they can have this armistice to, have this war beyond the wall and not just continue to fight each other and be blocked off. Which again, Dany has 3 dragons.
Yeah.
Why can't she just fly those dragons over and
circle a few times?
Yeah.
6, 7 times, something.
And in this process, the Night King pulls out an ice javelin or an ice harpoon, and he kills apparently Viserion. Because if it's not Drogon, we don't know which one it is at this point.
Right. For some reason, they have captured a white, and they've been holding it on this little island that they have because the ice broke at one point, and they're surrounded by literally what appears to be 10,000 strong and the Night's King, and they've been kind of waiting this out. The ice refreezes. The battle begins again. Dany rides in, and he decides to. Which this does bother me rewatching that scene because I rewatched it yesterday. Danny circles around with Dragoon once or twice, burns them all, and lands.
Mm-hmm.
And people like start crawling on the back of him and like moving towards him, while the other two are circling and burning.
Yeah.
Why did he throw it in the air? Why didn't he just throw it right at the cast of
Because
seven?
it can't be Drogon.
Well, there's a cast of 7 people right there, right in front of him, and he instead goes,
that one.
that one. Like, I got this. I mean, he figures out, all the variables to take out that one, but the one that's
Right there, stationary.
stationary with some main characters on top of him, he doesn't take
Well, I
out.
mean, you could also take that with why did he stand on that ledge for how many hours or days and not hit him with one of their javelins?
True.
I mean, there's a bunch of different plot holes in that moment. But I mean, I think the main one is he understood the poetic justice of like that one.
Yeah,
That one's named after her asshole brother that abused her and possibly raped her and sold her.
Yeah.
That one I want.
I did. That scene, I mean, the battle, other than there is criticisms about the plot and decisions, but they really invested a lot of money on the battles this season. And, the ship battles were pretty cool, even though kind of at night and blurry.
And they were happening in the background, essentially.
Yeah, something was happening. The big battle outside of King's Landing with the dragons was really cool, a good investment. The episode was really invested with all the stuff with the Whites, and then the dragon showed up. And the death of that dragon was pretty amazing because he hits it while it's spitting fire. So then the fire fluid sacs burst while he's spinning to the ground, and then he crashes and he slides across the ice, and the fluids are gushing. The dragon's dying. Dragon sinks, cracks the ice, and slumps into the water, and they take off. And it's like, oh, that is actually really beautifully done, and it does have an impactful moment of like dragon number B, because Dragon's the important one, is dead, and that's really sad. And then Danny, of course, gets upset and is sad because that's her children, and John comforts her in the weirdest way. Oh, after being miraculously saved from the water.
And also by Uncle Benjen.
Oh yeah, by his uncle.
I've been looking for you for 3 years, Uncle Benjen. Thanks for saving my life in this Deus Ex Machina kind of way.
Thank you for saving my life. I know I've been out here for 2 or 3 days on this snowy ice, and I've just plunged through the water, and I've gotten out, and you've saved me. I'd really like to talk to you, but I'm going to borrow your horse. Please stay here and die.
Pretty much. And my question is, does Uncle Benjen become a White?
Oh, I hope so.
Or is it because he's stuck in between, he just can die?
I don't know.
It's a question I want to have answered pretty quickly. And then, yeah, John offers to bend the knee, and he and Danny have a really awkward moment, considering she's his aunt. And they take the White that they were successfully able to save, which I think how they got him on Drogon is great, where they just impaled him on one of his spikes.
That was beautiful.
I thought that was awesome. That was a nice touch. Because obviously if he's loose, he's just going to wiggle free.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a nice touch. And then they bring the White to Cersei, and that moment was really weird too, because the box is quiet that they have him in, and then the Hound like taps it, and it freaks out and it jumps.
Yeah.
And then the Hound is literally lugging it upstairs in the dragon pits outside of King's Landing, and not a peep. And you could like, if this was CinemaSins, they would be like, "Oh, this White has a great sense of dramatic timing."
Yeah. Yeah. That was just. I mean, the bulk of the last episode was what is everybody going to do now? Actually, the 7th episode is probably despite the way it ended, is probably my favorite part of the season, because it lets a lot of character interaction happen. It really sets the stakes for the last 6 episodes whenever we get them. There was good moments between Jaime and Cersei. There was good moments between Tyrion and Cersei. There was good interactions between all the characters. The Hound and Brienne had a moment. There's a lot of little moments that are actually allowed to happen as we're allowed to breathe and figure out, as everybody now catches up and is like, oh, these things are actually real. We have evidence. Everybody knows. This is the truth. This is what's coming across the wall. This is what we have to do. And they actually allowed the characters to interact with each other in a pleasant manner. That was satisfying. Other than some weird moments, like why did the White lunge at Cersei out of everybody there.
I think he was just heading in a straight line. Like
Oh, okay.
they just he has no leader, so he's just like straight line, go.
Yeah, but someone pointed out to me that the mountain didn't move at all when that happened. Like, yeah, I went to look for that moment when I rewatched it yesterday, but I missed it again because someone says like when it lunges, like people have moved towards her before when he's become zombie mountain, but when the white heads towards him, he does nothing. And I was like, huh. Which that's a cool little touch if that's true because it's just the dead seeing the dead or something.
Yeah,
like that. Yeah,
that's interesting. And when I saw them like lop off the White's arm, well, when they just kicked over the thing and he walked out, I was like, Qyburn is just gonna love this thing with the way he obviously manipulated the mountain. And then the arm gets lopped off, and the first thing he does is he goes and picks it up, and it's moving, and he's just like, wow, this is amazing. I did like that. Yeah, because that creeper, you can tell he's like, how can I do this? And there are a lot of great moments. The moment with Cersei and Tyrion, or the scene, not just the moment, is really interesting just because of the way it cuts out. He finds out she's pregnant, and then it ends. Like, that's it. So we don't know what happened after that and what was said to get her to come back to this meeting.
Yeah, that was a little weird. It seemed like they should have allowed a few more beats, or that, I don't know, that they're like, well, we'll fit this in season 8 somewhere.
Yeah, it has to be something that's going to come back in season 8. So that's kind of where the show really leaves off. We find out that Cersei is not actually planning on honoring the armistice. She's going to let Dany and her army go north, and then she's going to take everything back south.
Yep.
And she's also got the Iron Bank backing her. Euron Greyjoy pretends to freak out over the White Walkers, but he's actually going to get the army of the sellswords. And Jon and Dany hook up, creating super awkward moments because, as my wife can tell you, I was just like, Jon, don't do it. Please don't. I was hoping that throughout the entire season, when they were just giving them those longing looks and those awkward long scenes together with silence and just looking at each other, I was really just hoping that they were just going to end up just being like, we can't do this. We're in the middle of a war. We can't do this.
Right.
And then they find out and they're like, oh, thank God we didn't do that.
Yep.
Nope. No. There's going to be an illegitimate child that is 3/4 Targaryen and 1/4 Stark. Yeah. And Jon's going to have a cousin son, and Dany's going to have a second cousin son or something like that, a nephew son. Nephew son. It's no good.
No, we all got their lovemaking to the dulcet tones of Bran talking as the three-eyed raven.
Yeah.
So season 7 ends with incest.
Would it really end any other way with Game of Thrones?
No. Military heading north, Jaime among them, because I actually did like that Jaime finally realized Cersei is just nuts.
Well, it's. I don't even think that it's she's nuts. I think it's that he's realized that she doesn't have any honor. Where at the beginning of the series, he didn't really care about honor, but through his experiences with Brienne and losing his hand, and just his experiences and travels that he's had, even in his talks with Bronn, he's matured and he's kind of discovered that there is a place in this world for honor, even in the Game of Thrones.
Right.
And I think that he's realized that she has no honor. She just cares about herself and those closest to her. And he doesn't think that he's one of those people anymore. So he's going to go honor that and give Dany a heads up like, hey, please don't kill me, but my sister is not planning on honoring this.
Yeah.
So season 8 predictions. Let's go with that. I'll let you start.
So these are predictions / hopes. 1, please kill off 90% of the quote-unquote main characters. We haven't really had a shocking or unexpected death since, I don't know, maybe season 5. They killed off the Dornish plotline. They've killed off Littlefinger, but he had it coming for a long time. I would like to see Sansa, Arya, Jon, Cersei, Tyrion, someone who is someone big, or majority of them go. I was hoping Braun might be one, but he's obviously protected by fan favorite plot armor. Brienne is somehow protected because I swear if they put Tormund and her together,
Oh,
I'm gonna
they're gonna make their monster
I
babies.
love the Hound's interaction with her. But my main predictions for this next 6 episode is I do think that Cersei is pregnant. I don't think she's going to carry the child to term though.
I agree.
I think that's gone. I do think Danny saying, "Oh, the dragon are my children. I can't have any."
That's
garbage.
obviously BS. Because
That's garbage.
yeah,
I think maybe it's possible that the whole Princess Promise thing may actually be their kid. I don't know why, but for some reason I'm like, oh, if she ends up pregnant, maybe that's the prince. I don't know. I think I would like to see coming out of this is I want to see Cersei get it, and I hope it's Arya. I think that maybe Jaime going north, since Jaime's on her list, Arya's list. I think isn't he on her list?
I can't remember. He probably is, like all the
Yeah,
Lannisters are.
because there was like that interaction where like he was briefly at the Greyjoys, the Freys, and there was that servant making eyes with him, and turns out it was secretly Arya. I would think he's on the list. I'm hoping that he goes north, does some good things, she kills him, and then she goes back to Cersei wearing Jaime's face, and Arya fulfills the younger sibling.
You'll be killed by the little brother.
Yeah. By it being her wearing Jaime's face that takes her out. I'd like to see Sansa as Queen of the North. I think she's earned it at this point. I'm still not a fan of her character. Never really been, but I'd like to see her as Queen of the North. And I'm hoping that here's a prediction I hope doesn't happen. Bran, as the three-eyed raven, better not warg into the ice flying dragon and take it over, because that's just going to drive me nuts. Because that's way too convenient. That's way too the whole like, oh, he has this unstoppable flying dragon now that took down the wall, and then no, we'll defeat it with the power of warging and my predictions and stuff. I do want to see some glorious battles in the north of the White Walkers against all this military, and when it all wraps up, I'm thinking Sansa is Queen of the North, or at least acknowledged as Warden of the North. I hope Tyrion's on the throne. I would hope, my dream would be Tyrion and Sansa on the throne, because Tyrion's the only level-headed one that's left, even though they've made him kind of boring. He's level-headed, and he's still married to Sansa, because I don't think they ever annulled that. Or maybe they did.
I think they did, because that's how she was able to be married off to Ramsay.
Oh yeah. Well, that's because he was a traitor, but he's not. Because he killed these people. He killed Joffrey, but he didn't. So I'm hoping maybe that rearranges, and that it Sansa and Tyrion, and because he's the only one who treated her with respect and dignity. So the two of them are on the throne. Jon and Dany somehow die, move off together somewhere. That's my dream. I want to see Arya. So that's basically my three big hooks. Sansa and Tyrion on the throne. Somehow that works out. Bran better not warg into something. And Arya takes Jaime's face and kills Cersei with it. So there's my 6 episodes. You can add fighting, incest, and some fun there.
So I agree. I don't think Cersei's carrying the baby to term, because she has that prophecy over her head that she's going to have 3 kids. I do think Jaime is going to be the one that has to kill her. I think he will be King and Queen Slayer.
Ooh.
Because I think it's poetic justice that he kind of helped create this monster, and now he has to be the one to put her down.
Yeah.
I do think we'll get the Clegane Bowl.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Although
yes.
there are people that are speculating that the Hound is no longer the one that's meant to kill him, because he says something to the effect of, you've always known who's coming to get you. And so people are thinking maybe it's not the Hound. I think that Sansa will become Lady of the North, unquestioned, and I think she'll be Warden and Lady. I don't think she'll have to marry anyone. She'll get to choose if she wants to. She'll be the first lady to rule Winterfell.
Nice.
And then I think Jon becomes a reluctant king of the nine?
Yeah, 7.
Seven. No, I'm thinking Thor with 9. King of the Seven Realms. I think he becomes a reluctant ruler with either Tyrion or Davos as his hand, and I think he's gonna hate it,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be a kind of a bittersweet ending because I don't know if Dany's gonna survive. I don't think it's her place to, and I think it creates a really awkward situation of having a nephew and aunt ruling the Seven Kingdoms together. So I think that Jon becomes a reluctant ruler, and at the end of it, I do buy into this theory that Tyrion, which we didn't discuss this at all, but Tyrion has this really awkward moment where he's lingering in the hallway when Jon and Dany decide to bunk up.
Yep.
And there's a theory out there that says he's obsessing over her heir because he wants to create a democracy or a republic.
Interesting.
And I buy into that. I think he wants to get rid of the monarchy and all that so that the people have a voice. And it's not just one person deciding what's right for everyone playing their Game of Thrones. It's a republic with representatives voted for by the people. And I like that theory a lot, and I think that's where Jon will end up. He'll be a reluctant ruler for a while until they can establish the republic, and then he'll get a happy ending traveling north where they're having spring for the first time.
So that might also play into the Viserys and Missandei thing, where she was all, our time of whispering in king's ears is over, or something like that. Because if there's no more king or queen, then there's no reason for them to be lurking around, pretending to be who they are.
And then their purpose is also no longer needed because there's no king to support.
Right.
So I think that's where the show's going to end up. We'll see who's right. That's basically it for discussion of Game of Thrones Season 7. I know we missed a lot. We skipped over a lot. We jumped around a lot. But hey, so did Season 7.
Yeah. That's quite right. I mean, we didn't really miss anything that important. So some people traveled around. Okay, yeah.
Traveled by map.
Exactly.
So, Alex, thanks for coming on, being on the show. You'll be back. One thing we're trying to do, besides obviously growing the brand of our podcast and getting more and more people to watch. I mean, you can technically watch it on YouTube, but it's just going to be one big banner of our logo right now. But to listen, to kind of get to know us, to follow us, you can find us on Twitter at Talking Smack Pod. You can email us your thoughts if you have any theories that you want us to read on the air on our podcast. You can email us at tsmackpod@gmail.com. Smack is spelled SMAC. Superheroes, movies, animation, comics. Next week, I'm going to be talking with Scotty. We're going to be doing a review of Destiny 2, and plus we're going to be talking about all the news throughout the week. With me again is Alex.
Hello.
And I'm Joshua Scar. Alex, are you on Twitter?
No.
You
I don't really social media much.
You don't do the tweet?
No.
All right. Well, you can follow me at Josh_Scar. Scar is spelled SKAAR, like the son of Hulk. And we appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. This is a big venture of mine. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time. So I hope we can keep you entertained, keep you engaged. And did I mention C2E2? No, I didn't.
No, you didn't.
Okay, so one of the things we're trying to do is we want to have a panel at C2E2. One of the things that we have to do is we have to have episodes and we have to have a plan. We have a plan. Our plan for the panel, if we get it, would be to have all of our panelists or all of our hosts, myself, Alex, Scotty, Lewis, and a few others that are going to be on every now and then. We're going to do our our guilty pleasure movies for the panel if we get in. And I know a couple of people have some great ideas, and I have a couple in there that it's going to kill me to have to reveal that in front of a group of people, plus have to put it on the podcast. And we're putting ourselves out there just to try and get us in this panel, and we're trying to think of a hashtag. So again, if you have a hashtag idea for this, you can email us or tweet it at us. You can tweet us at Talking Smack Pod, or you can email us at tsmackpod@gmail.com. Again, smack is spelled SMAC. So again, thank you for taking the time to listen to us. This episode went a lot longer than I was planning on it originally, but there was a lot of news, and The Tick is good. Watch The Tick.
Please watch The Tick. Amazon needs, people to recognize that they actually have original shows that aren't bad.
Or Golden Globe bait.
Oh, exactly.
But
there always is the Grand Tour, but that's not this podcast.
But again, thank you for taking the time to listen to us. Thank you for sticking through this. Thank you for sticking through the worst first episode ever because we had to talk about spoilers for Game of Thrones.
Right.
Everyone have a great week, and we'll be back next week. Take care.
Play the theme music.